I have in my hand
Oh yeah.
your book about the hot topic of gender and sexuality, and I will ask you about one example of this change of metaphors or language to deal with a specific and very problematic topic. For example, gender of the role of man, or what is a woman, for example.
So the question is, how do the biblical authors frame the discussion?
Yes.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, maybe I could talk about how they have the discussion, and then we can talk about what the discussion is, because I think how they have the discussion is very informative for what I'm trying to do in the book, Biblical Philosophy. Um, the issue of gender comes up in Genesis 1. Gender or sex, I mean, some people want to say there's only sex, biological sex, and gender's not differentiated, but I'll use the terms interchangeably here. But certainly male and female comes up in Genesis 1 as the image of God, right? So he made them in his image, male and female, he created them, right? So whatever the image of God is, it at least contains maleness and femaleness in some way, whatever that means. And then he makes a man that has the male part, and then he makes a woman, he constructs a woman. And the purpose of the male and female is, I mean, this is biologically true. I did not know this until I was researching for this book on evolution, that that gender and sex is embarrassing for evolution, because if evolution had gone correctly, there would be no gender. There would be no male, no female. We would just self-replicate. Pedro would just split off and create a new Pedro, and Drew would create a new Drew. Male and female is it's a horrible deformation of natural selection. It's very inefficient. It gets guys killed. Male birds get all these feathers because the girls like them, and then it ends up making them easier to chase down and kill. It's all bad for evolutionary biology. And yet we have male and female put at the image of God in Genesis 1. And then male and female in Genesis 2 is for the purpose of procreation. There is actually no other reason for male and female outside of procreation. So it lays down a very core idea in Genesis 1 and 2, that the image of God is male and female, and the first humans are male and female in order to procreate. And then it doesn't really talk about sex in any kind of normative way again until Leviticus 18. So I just wrote an article for Christianity Today on sex in Genesis, why there's such weird sex in Genesis, and everybody's having sex with everybody, and people are getting their dad drunk in order to get pregnant by him, and I mean, just all kinds of weird sexual relationships are happening in the book of Genesis. And so when you get to Leviticus 18, you have a list of people you can't have sex with, and things that, you can't have sex with an animal, you can't have sex with a close relative, you cannot have sex with a man with a man, a woman with a woman with an animal, a man with his wife when she's menstruating, right? It's all these things. And then Leviticus 20 reiterates all of those things, same things. What it does not do is ever say, okay, in this long list of sexual teaching and instruction, it never says what kind of sex you can have, right? So when I tell my students, the Bible doesn't actually command you not to have sex before marriage. Like, there is no command, thou shalt not have sex before marriage. And of course, most of them say, well, wait, I've been taught my whole life that you can't have sex before you're married. And, and they just expected that to be in there somewhere. And I say, well, that's not how the Bible teaches. When the biblical authors think something is very important, the way they teach it is they talk about it in creation, and then they talk about it in the legal reasoning, and then they show you lots of examples in narrative and story as to how various things work out, in order to grow you in wisdom about the thing that they want to talk to you about. Because as soon as you say, it's an absolute law. Nobody should ever have sex before they get married. You haven't really taught anybody anything about sex and marriage. You basically just made a line that, and of course, I don't know how it is in Brazil, but I know lots of people who are taught don't have sex before you get married. And sexually, they do everything else except for have full on procreational sex. And they make all kinds of ways around it. So they're having a more robust discussion of sex that requires you to follow along, see all the weird sex that's going on in Genesis, in the book of Genesis, see why it doesn't work out, right? So can you have more than one wife? Scripture never says whether you can have more than one wife at all. It doesn't say. But it gives you an image of what a couple should look like when everything is right, nothing has gone wrong. So marriage is not an accommodation, it's when everything has gone correctly. And then it shows you lots of different stories where people acquire more wives, they have children by different wives, they have sex with people who are not their wives. Like, you just get, it's all negative. There's not a single positive story of anybody having sex outside of marriage where it ends well. And if you have sex with many women and have children with them, then it's probably going to be the case that the children are going to try to kill each other, like in Genesis, or kill and rape each other and kill you, the parent, as it happens with David in the book of Samuel. So it's giving you these fundamentally grounded in creation, distorted after Genesis 3, and then some legal reasoning about things that you just cannot do these things because they have such bad effects on the family, the community, and the individual. And this is why I hedged at wisdom teaching, because I don't know how the Torah itself is not wisdom teaching. If that's how you're teaching somebody, let me tell you a bunch of stories, let me give you some concrete examples, and you're asking the person to put it together themselves, that to me is developing wisdom. That's not just telling stories or oracles or sutras about God.
Fantastic. The same. We have the same case here in Brazil to this topic of these questions, and we have a lot of material to change the approach to deal with it. Thank you very much.